Hey folks, thanks for tuning in. This video is a bonus video for my Programming for Musicians course. Alright, let's go over what this video is about. This video is going to demonstrate one of the less code-related aspects of developing using Git submodules and how to write Juce modules. So here's some background for why this is being done. I have some code that exists in the new version of Cordy that I want to migrate over to another project. Now I already have made that code generic so it can be used in other projects. Now I need to get it into a Juce module that I can import into Producer and then load it as a Git submodule in each of these projects repositories. And I have to do this without breaking either project. So here are the steps that we are going to do in this video. Number one, we are going to make a Juce module that holds the code and remove it from the existing project. Number two, we are going to make a repository for this Juce module. And then number three, we are going to add it as a submodule to the existing project and change the paths in the project so that it uses this submodule instead of the regular Juce module. And then we are going to add it as a submodule to the other project. And again, we have to do all of this without breaking either project. All right, that's the end of my script, so the rest of this video will be unscripted. Let's dig in and hope that we come out unscathed. This is some pretty major surgery, but thankfully we have Git. Git is going to be there to save us if we need to undo all of these code changes and project organization stuff. All right, let's dive in. Okay, what we want to have happen is to take this code right here in this settings file base, those two source files right there. We want to put them in a module so we can we want to put them in a module so they can be used in a few other different projects. So we're going to start there. Now the first thing we have to do to turn them into a Juce module is make a folder that's going to hold the Juce module to begin with. Okay, so I've already got that right here, MatKatUtilities. Now, the way modules, the easiest way to get them set up, let's see, let me pull this folder over so you can see what's going on. Basically what needs to happen is you have a folder like this with this name right here, and then the name of the two files inside of it have the same name. And then if you open these files, if we look right here, the ID of the module is the same name as the file itself. And then we just need to include that same file here in the CPP file. And then I'll get to what happens with these guys first. So let's do this the easy way. I'm just gonna make a folder right here. I'm gonna call it MatKat_utilities. Almost spelled it out. MatKatUtilities like this. I'm just gonna drag these two analytics files. I'm gonna copy them in here. I'm going to rename them with the same name. Copy that, paste that. All right, let me close this and this one, and let me open these two guys. All right, so here's my utilities file. I'm going to leave all this the same. I'm just going to change this name right here, MatKatUtilities. All right, I don't know what dependencies this is going to need. I know I'm going to get rid of all this stuff because I'm not going to be using any of it. All right, so I'm just going to change this as well, MatKatUtilities. All right, we'll save that, and now we'll change this guy over here to include the proper name, MatKatUtilities.h, and we'll get rid of this. Go back over here. We'll grab this define right here, put it right there. Save that. Save this. Now, what we've got our folder. We've got our MatKatUtilities with the same name, the header file in the CPP. Spacebar, we can see that we've got MatKatUtilities. That's the right thing right there. Okay, now we can click the plus button right here, add a module from a specified folder, and if everything goes well, it will show up right here. Add module from a specified folder. Let's go find that folder. Make sure it's the one that's got the two files in it, not the one that owns it. We want the one that actually has the module files. And there it is. Now we can go about adding the files that will be a part of our Juce module. All right, so that worked successfully. So let's change our basic stuff right here, something like that. We'll change this website to be my, well, let's do the course. And it's a proprietary license. Proprietary license. Okay, so if we do that and we refresh, now we get our updated information right here. Awesome. Okay, cool. So now what we can do is we can find the code, this code right here, and we can make a folder and stick that in here, because if you look at all these modules, sure, they have this the two files right here, and then everything else inside of it is organized into folders. If we look at this, you'll see that these paths, the paths right here are all organized into folders. So let's do that. Let's find out where this exists. That's over here with a bunch of other source files. Let's add a folder. We'll call it utilities. And I'm just gonna copy these over like that. Now we need to update the MatKatUtilities.h to include the header file and the CPP to include the CPP file. So we need to go include /utilities, and now settings file base.h. And then in the CPP file, we can do the same thing except with the CPP file. The next thing we have to do is, so this depends on the Juce GUI basics, and you can see that it is including it here as an include file. So we need to make sure that we do that same thing. Right, so depending on what this needs, this needs the Juce code header, and specifically it needs value tree listener and timer. So let's find out where those things exist. Where does timer come from? Well, you know, the smart thing to do is to just open this, open it up in Xcode, and then just look for it. Let's just go to where timer is defined. That's defined in Juce events timers. Okay, so that's what we need. So this depends on Juce, the Juce events module. So we know that to begin with. So let's go back to Xcode. We'll open this stuff up here and go to our header file, and we can add dependencies, Juce events. All right, so we need to include that file. If we look at our Juce events, here we can see there's an events.h, so that's what we need to include. That should be the first thing that gets included. Include Juce events /Juce events.h. There's our GUI basics. Let's see what the CPP file includes. And it doesn't include anything out of the ordinary. So the next thing we need to look for is, that took care of timer. Where is value tree and value tree listener? Where do those guys come from? So let's look for that. We'll go over here, click on listener, or just click on value tree, and we'll see what class that's in. That's in Juce data structures. Okay, so we'll look for that. Data structures is right here. There's a data structures.h. Right, so we will go back here and switch to this file and include Juce data structures. Spell that right. And now we will include that. We'll include them in the order that they get used. So include like that. All right, we'll save that. Now let's redo this. Let's see, let's remove these guys. The easiest way is just to move it out of the project. So we will do that. We'll take these guys and we'll just move them so they're not a part of Producer, or so they're not in here at all. We'll just remove it altogether. All right. So we're putting faith in the fact that our MatKat utilities is hopefully set up correctly, and we'll see if it is. We go over here. If we look under not library code, well, there's our little module. That's pretty cool. All right, if we go over here into modules, into MatKat utilities, we can see this. This is where we can edit all this stuff. We can go over here. We can see here's the file. There's the settings file base. Now we need to figure out, where was that used? That was used in settings file base. So this is where we potentially need to comment this out. So let's comment that out. And let's see if it builds. We'll know right away if it can find settings file base in the Juce header file. If this works, then we're done. We have totally turned this into a Juce module. Yes. So the one thing we have to do is define all of these to say that they all start with the Juce namespace. And there's a cheat that we could do, which would be to write using namespace Juce, but that's a cheat, and we're not going to do that. Instead, we're actually going to prepend Juce, the Juce namespace before all of these, so that way there's no conflicts. It just makes life easier. So we'll save that, build this, and we'll see what we get. Oh, and we need to remove this. Your include files need to not include anything. So I'm gonna have to deal with this at some point. And the reason that we don't include this right here is because if we go back to our MatKat utilities, we are already including this, and then the CPP file is including that as well. So by including this right here, we are including all of this stuff, which includes that header file. So we can remove this from there. And then this folder is not valid. So this is going to not find something. So we'll need to eventually fix this. So let's just comment that out like that for right now. That's something that needs to be fixed. So we'll kill the build and build it one more time. We are most interested in when it gets to compiling settings file.cpp. Spelling table view. We want settings file. There it is, settings file.cpp. Let's see if we get an error or not. Settings file.cpp, check mark. All right, we're just waiting for it to do all of this stuff. Let's see what's going on here. Unknown type name. Oh, that's because I didn't prepend all of these with Juce. We did it in the header file, but not over here. All right, a little bit of stuff to work on, so we'll do that right there. This line will not work because there's no identifiers is not in the Juce thing. All right, and I pressed build before it had notified that, or noticed that that line had changed. So now it's just going to see this, and it's just going to fail because there's no identifiers class. So we'll work on that bug next. All right, so just two things right here. Where is this no member named that? Okay, good. All right, cool. So outside of that, that little bug right there, this works, and so we can get away with, we can just comment all of this out for right now if we really wanted to see it work. Before we do that, I want to turn this, I'm just gonna comment this out, and we're gonna do something next. Let's build that, just so we get a clean build, we can say that this totally worked. We know that we need to make some changes in this settings file base, which is inside the module now. But once that's done, we'll be good to go. Let's go back over here to our build message. We're just waiting for this to finish. This is taking a very long time. Man, I really can't wait until I get a new computer, and then these compile times will not take 1 minute per file, and they'll take like 10 seconds or whatever. I'm still over here cranking on my 2011 iMac 27-inch. There it goes, linking. All right, build succeeded with just that one warning. Okay, this is fantastic. So what can we do with this now? What needs to be done now? All right, so in our settings file base, the next thing to do, if I go back to my list, the next thing to do is to turn this module into a repository. So let's do that next. All right, we're gonna make the repository in this segment right here. You know, pretty standard stuff. We're just gonna open a terminal window, make a git repo, add the files, make our initial commit, and then make add a repository on Bitbucket or GitHub, whichever one we prefer to use. Add that as a remote to this local repository, and then we'll have our changes saved for this module in its own repository. And then the next thing we do after that is to add it as a submodule to the project. Okay, so let's do that first. Let's open up terminal. Let's make a new window. Do our usual, drag the folder in where we want it to go. Now we can do our git init, like that. And now we can make a git ignore file. Let's see, touch.git ignore. Now we've got a git ignore file. We can open this up, we can edit it. Let's see, we definitely, there's really nothing that we need to ignore because it's just gonna be source files. Maybe the one thing that we could possibly score are .ds files, so .ds store files, in case for whatever reason the operating system decides to make them. All right, once we've done that, now we can do git commit -m initial commit. Now we've got our, did that go? Let's see, the easiest way to check, oh no, I forgot a closing quote. So git, let's see, git status. What do we got? Untracked files, okay, that's fine. So we can do git, we need to do git add. That's what we have to do. Git add everything. Now git status. Now we can do git commit -m initial commit, closing quote. There it goes. All right. Now we can open up fork or source tree or something else, and we can see our module. So let's do exactly that. We'll go down here. We'll just look for MatKat Utilities. Is it there? Open. Let's see. We want to do file open. So just open MatKat Utilities. All right. There's our initial commit of our repository. Any changes that we make here will show up there. So let's make the remote next. Go over here. Go to a blank tab. Bitbucket. Make a repo. We'll give it the same name. Repositories. Let's see. Go to Bitbucket. Add a repo. We'll call it MatKat Utilities. MatKat Utilities. Like that. Create repository. Create a new project. Private repository. Let's see. There we go. That's fine. This language is going to be C++. All right, cool. So now we've got our remote add. So we can do all of this stuff now. We can just go right back to terminal. Oh, this is the wrong URL. We want to do HTTPS. So we'll just copy this URL, go to fork, go under remotes, right click, add new remote. Now this address is here. Let's test the connection and make sure it's good to go. Connection is executed. Origin, there we go. All right, cool. So now we have a repository in the cloud that points to this. Okay, so let's just get rid of one line. That's settings file base. We can get rid of these guys as well. Save, and let's just make a commit here and just make sure that this is cool. So we, let's see, removed unneeded header includes. Now we can commit and we can push, master push. All right, and we can take a look here and we'll see our stuff show up. All right, there it is. There's the module. There's the code for it. All right, that's fantastic. Okay, so we have created a repository for this. So the next thing to do is add it as a submodule to the existing project and change the path to use this submodule. Okay, so let's do that next. Let's do the Git submodule step. Again, this is, we're starting to get into some fairly intense surgery on our projects so we can get all this stuff working. So what we have to do to make this work, we're gonna copy this remote. We can do it from a couple places. So I'm just gonna, let's see. I'm gonna just edit the origin, edit this. I'm just gonna copy this URL, copy, cancel. And I'm just gonna add it as a submodule right here. Add, sorry, that's the wrong project. I'm gonna add it to Cordy as a submodule. So we'll right click, add new submodule. That's gonna be called MatKat Utilities. Fetch modules recursively, like that. So now if we go to the actual folder that shows all of the Cordy source code, that is, where is that? That's over here. We've got MatKat Utilities. Here's the MatKat Utilities. Here's these source files and whatnot, like that. Okay, so now we can go to the juicer file. We can get rid of this module. And now we can do add module from a specified folder. And now we can pick the pick that folder that's in the Cordy project. Go to that and let's see, we'll sort by name. Cordy app, MatKat Utilities. This folder is the one we want. There it is, it showed up. So now if we save and reopen this, we should be able to build Cordy app without any headache. So now if we go back over here and take a look at this, not from the source in the Juice modules, MatKat Utilities is still here. It's all still good. All right, so let's just build it and should be rocking and rolling. That should have been the only thing we had to do. Now what's interesting about this is, while we are waiting for that to compile, we have MatKat Utilities folder right here. And then we also have the Cordy app folder, which has it here. You can, don't worry about the lowercase-ness of this folder name. Git does not care about whether or not it's uppercase or lowercase when it comes to folder names, that sort of thing. Or at least when you clone, that's what happens. There are 3 places that we can make changes. We can make changes on Bitbucket. We can make changes in the Cordy app project. We can make changes in this project directly. Not in that project directly, in this directly. If we don't use it as a submodule, if we use it as just like, I'm just including this Juce module directly into my project. I'm not including it as a submodule in my project so that it's stored on the cloud or whatever. The good thing about pushing to the remote is that it's a way that you can keep all of these different locations in sync. So for example, I'll make a change to this file right here, this utilities. I'm just going to add a comment. Let me just open this up. I'm going to add a comment. I'm going to make a commit, and I want to show you what happens in the the submodule view in Fork. So I'm just going to say adding a comment. Let's add a to-do based on what that CPP file. So I'm going to say add a getter, add a virtual getter for the settings file identifier. This is related to this thing over here. If I go to this, this has to do with this identifier right here. Instead of hard coding something, I'm just going to add a pure virtual getter. This is going to be the bug fix that's going to enable us to code, enable us to work. We're just going to add a pure virtual getter to this class, like we've done here, and let the derived class implementation handle that. All right, so that way we can have these lines work again. Okay, so I've saved that, saved this. I'm going to go to Fork while this is running. In my MatKat utilities, you can see this has changed. Here's one change, so I'm just going to say added a to-do. Let me commit that. For some reason, if it's open in Xcode, it's like not doing that, or it's taking a really long time. Or maybe it's just because I'm doing this while I'm also doing a screen recording on an old computer. Okay, added a to-do. All right, so commit that. Now, if we push this to the cloud, now, first of all, if we go look at this one right here, let me pop this over into a separate window just so you can see what I mean. If we go to our changes, the change that we made here in MatKat utilities, this change right here where we added that single line is not here. All we have is that some files were added. And the reason that it's showing up that way is because they are currently not ignored, right? We have to ignore this folder because it's in the, it's showing up. So we need to ignore this subtree, this submodule folder. Let's do that while we are waiting. Open in Finder. All right, let's go to this git ignore. We're going to ignore the MatKat utilities folder. So // MatKat utility, like that. All right, wait for that to save, go back here. Oh, my fault. These two exist here because, let's see, where are these located? These are right here. That's why they exist there. And I know we don't want them, so I'm just going to get rid of them because I have it backed up in the cloud in the new module. Okay, so those are there. It's ignoring as we want that utilities folder, and now we've got this submodule, which is what we want. Okay, so now we can just make a commit added submodule. All right, so let's just stage all this stuff. All right, we'll make that commit. Now, I wanted to show you, if we look at the submodule itself, also, look at that, build succeeded, that's fantastic. Okay, if we look at this one. Here's the master. This was the, let me pull up these folders just so it's easy, it makes sense. Okay, this repository here corresponds with this one. Let me shrink this file. Okay, this, oops, let me go back to Finder. This repository corresponds with this folder right here. You can see that there's one commit ahead. Now, if we look over here, this repository, which is a clone of this one, does not contain this to-do commit. Now, if I push this, push origin, push master to origin, and we go over here and we fetch, there's our to-do. It hasn't shown up in the local one. Now, why is this useful? This is useful in case you make some change for some other project. Like, you know, say you just add a bunch of code to some other project and you move it ahead, you move the origin branch ahead like 5 commits or whatever. Now in your other project, you may be like, you know what, I don't want to use those changes yet, so I'm just going to stick to some commit that I know I'm really stable on. And this happens a lot with a lot of Juce projects. A lot of people will say, I don't want to, they'll be, you know, way down here and they'll be like, you know what, I just need like I checked out the develop branch when they made this single commit right here, and I'm good. You know, a couple days later they made all of these other commits, but these aren't, you know, tested. I don't want to be on the very latest software updates of the framework. So I'm just going to stay on this commit. I'm not going to stay at the front end of the development tip. And you can see I'm actually doing that right here. I'm on this develop version right here. And you can see that there's been a bunch of stuff added. The develop branch on origin is way up here. Right? There's a lot of stuff that has changed between the branch, the point in time of the Git development history that I'm at versus where the actual project is. It's like, you know, apparently my code is, let's see, April 9th. And this is from yesterday. So today's the 24th, April 9th. That's what, like 24 minus 9, 14 minus 9 is 5. So this is, I'm 15 days behind, basically. And there's some people who are like, you know what? I am still stuck on version, let's see, what version? I'm still stuck on version 5.0 or version 4.3. I still have not upgraded to, you know, whatever these are. All right. So that's enough of that. We know that this works, and now we can implement that fix. And the other thing that's cool about this is we made that one change. So let's add, we can pull that in here. All right. Now, if we go to our settings file base, we can see our change has shown up here. So let's do this change now. Okay, we'll just add a pure virtual getter, virtual void get general settings ID equals 0, and this actually needs to return an identifier. We will call that. We'll comment this out, uncomment this out, and we'll put that right there. And that needs to be to string like that because this returns an identifier and we want the string version. So now we can also go down here, and this is where we pulled that same setting, identifiers general settings. Yep. So we'll do the same thing, get value, get settings ID. Okay. And now if we build it, we should get an error that the derived class has not implemented this. So let's take care of that now. We're going to copy this, override it, override, and we've got our identifiers here. So this is where we can implement this guy. Let's just put it right here. Identifier, settings file, get general settings ID. And this is where we want to return. What did this used to be? Let's see, we can do our version control to see what that used to be. We'll go back over here to CPP file. It used to be this. All right, so that's what we'll put. And we'll get rid of this. All right, so we will return that. Return this. Okay, that's implemented. Now if we build this, we shouldn't get any errors. And that should have taken care of our to-do. So we'll find out if that's cool, then we'll delete this to-do list, to-do item, and then we will make a commit and be rocking and rolling. All right, build succeeded with one warning. That's fantastic. Okay, let's go, now that our change is cool, so we can make a commit from 2 places. Well, actually just from 1 place. So first of all, it's important to note that the changes that we made in the submodule have not shown up in the other clone of the repository. They are only right here. So let's see, we were going to get rid of this, let's see. We were going to get rid of that to-do item if that build worked. And that build did work, so we can get rid of that. All right, save. All right, so now we can look at our commit. All right, so implemented pure virtual function. If I make a commit here, it's going to appear as not over here yet. And then the other thing is that if we, you know, for whatever reason we're doing it in Xcode, if we do commit, it looks a little different as well. Each of these is their own repository, so you can see the Juce stuff if I don't want to do any of that. turn that off right now. You can see that it shows up as its own thing. And if I make a commit here, they are all going to use the same commit message, which can be somewhat convenient and also can be like, I don't know if I want the changes that I made in this file to also have the same commit message as the changes I made here. So you may consider doing them in separate steps. And a way to do that is to use a different Git GUI such as fork or source tree or Git Kraken or something like that. Okay, so if you make your change here, so I'm going to say, what did I do here? I'm going to say implemented virtual getter, implemented pure virtual getter, like that. All right, let me commit these two guys. Okay, so now we just need to make our change here that shows that we implemented a virtual getter. Implemented getter for general settings ID, like that. All right, let's stage those two guys. All right, commit two files and push. All right, cool. All right, so if I go over here and fetch, you can see that it's been updated. The current position in the tree is not on the same commit as what the master on origin is set to. Okay, so we have made, we have implemented our submodule into our project. And we have made some commits from there, and we have synced them up with our other copy of the module. So what we can do now that we have this is we can do this. We can take the same steps where we opened our other project. Let's see. I think that's this one over here. Yes, this guy. This is like the old version of Cordy. We can go to our modules here. We can add a module from a specified folder. Or sorry, we can go to this repository, which I think is this one right here. We can go to this repository. We can add it as a submodule, add new submodule, do the same process where we add the submodule, change the address here to point to it. And then any changes that we make for this project can potentially be updated in this other project. And then once we've done all of that, we have this shared module that can live between both projects, and we only have to edit the code once. The only thing we have to remember to do is to always fetch, and then if we see that our module is out of date, we just need to just either check it out or pull, and then our module will be up to date with the other project. So this is pretty handy if you find some code that you write is generic enough to be used among other projects. Now you can make it shared between projects and keep your shared copies in sync, which is the most important part. All right. So the first thing that we did in this video was we had some source files over here, settings file base. And we converted those into a Juce module. And the process that we did for that was to first create a utilities file, first create a folder in Finder or in whatever operating system you have. First create a folder that you want to move those files to, which was over here, MatKat Utilities. Inside of it, you're going to create a folder where it's going to have two files, a header file and a CPP file. And these files need to all have the same name. In addition to the same name, they need to have this Juce declaration thing in here. It needs to have the name of the ID needs to match the name of the folder and needs to match the name of these files. Step number 2, after you do that, and you can verify this step by just importing it into, or trying to add it into Juce as a module. Step number 2 is to take the source files that you want to add to this module, put them inside a folder, add them to the folder, and then figure out what those files depend on. Once you know what they depend on, include those things and note the dependency here in the module itself. Then you can actually go on and include those two files, or include the files that you added to the folder directly right here. Okay. So again, you need to make sure that you don't figure out what those files need to work, and then include those things in the module first. Okay, once you've done that, now in your module source files themselves, do not include anything. Anything that these need to function needs to be included in the module files themselves. Okay? Same goes for the CPP file. The CPP file does not include anything, and that's because the module file itself includes what the CPP file needs. If you remember what happens with include statements, all of the contents of this source file is going to replace this line of code right here. So the entire contents of settings file base.cpp is going to get pasted right here when this file gets compiled. That's what the compiler is going to do. Okay? All right. So once you've got that working, then you can save this as a regular module, and you can use your module in your code now as a regular Juce module, the same way you use anything else in the Juce framework. As long as you include the library, the Juce header file, it's going to give you access to these files in your module. Okay? All right. Once you get that working, now you can make a Git repository for it, and set up your ignore in case if you're on OS X, it might try to create a DS store file, which basically what that does is just stores how you have the folder organized. If you've ever done it with this view, when you right click, get info or arrange by or set the view by, that's what that file controls. So if you adjust the way the window looks on OS X, that file is what's going to show up, and that's why you can ignore those via the git ignore file. Once you have that as a Git repository uploaded to the cloud, now you can go to your projects repository over here. You can go to your projects repository. You can add a submodule that points to that repository that you have in the cloud. Then you can clone that repository, and then your project will have a copy of the module you just made inside your repository like that. Okay? Now the next thing you have to do is you need to go to your ignore file for your project, and you need to ignore this new folder because it already has its own Git repository. So you don't want to include these files inside this repository. All right, so you need to remember to ignore the submodule that you created. All right, once you've done that and you've added this to the repository, now you can add it to your Juce, to your ProJuicer file. Okay, so do the same thing. You're going to add, well, you can get rid of the old one that was pointing to the module location on your hard drive. And then you can do the add submodule, add a module from a specified folder, and the specified folder will be the submodule you just cloned into your project folder. All right, once you've done that, you should be good to go. You can start using your module right away. Now, the reason this is so cool is that, say you've got multiple computers, you've got a desktop machine, you've got a laptop, you've got a Windows machine, that sort of thing. You have a bunch of different machines you're trying to keep the projects in sync on. When you do this git submodule trick and add it to the ProJuicer project, when you clone the repository and you clone your submodule, it's going to give you all the files you need all at once. The juicer's already going to be set up to use this submodule file. It's not going to be looking for a submodule in some other location. All of your source code for your project is going to be stored in the project itself. That's the best part. So you can just clone your repo and any submodules on any computer you need to compile it for. If you've got a Windows 7 machine, a Windows 10, OS X 10.7, OS X Catalina, all these different operating systems that you need to build it for, Linux or whatever like that. The project will be 100% self-contained. That's the whole reason for doing this. You can just clone the project and then build it right away, and you don't have to worry about, oh, I need to fix my juicer file. This module is pointing to some other folder location that's like, I have to configure it per computer. And then when you have to do that, because you changed the juicer file, now you need to make a commit that shows that you made a change. And that's just annoying because then when you go back to your other computer, say you made changes after you got stuff working on the new module, you go back to your old computer, and now the copy of the repository on your old computer is out of date. And then when you update it, your juicer file on that computer is pointing to a module that doesn't exist. So now Producer's not going to be able to save your project, and everything is all messed up. So that's the reason this is so amazing and handy when you're trying to work on your computers on multiple machines. This is also great if you have a bunch of continuous integration stuff set up on your build server. Basically, if you don't do it this way, what's going to happen is the Juce module is going to be searched for in some place other than the project repository. So you're going to have to configure that stuff on your build server, and you're going to have to make sure that your file paths on your build server is also matches what you have on your local computer. Basically, just don't do any of that. Just learn how to use submodules, learn how to use the Juce modules. It's not terribly difficult. It's kind of technical, but once you get it working, basically this project can just be cloned and built on any computer, and you'll be rocking and rolling. You don't have to do any post-configuration stuff with regard to where all of the files are. Okay, so that's going to wrap up this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a lot out of it, and I hope you're able to use this to improve the portability of your projects so you can work on them on multiple computers, like on a laptop, go run to Starbucks and do some work, or your local coffee shop whenever COVID-19 ends. Go, work at like some remote place. You can go outside and work on your laptop versus being in your office working on your desktop machine, that sort of thing. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. Feel free to leave me any comments or any questions, whatnot. I will see you in the next video. Deuces.